Overwatch and the Guardian is the code name for the team that won't quit. Its purpose to force the normies to swallow the red pill against the narrative. A ruthless force determined to keep everyone asleep. They broadcast the truth on Rumble, on clouds dropping red pills every week. Overwatch and the Guardian, the narrative is weak.
We can't let it end like this!
It's too late.
Defenders of the truth. Overwatch and the Guardian. Overwatch and the Guardian. Overwatch and the Guardian. Overwatch and the Guardian.
There it is. Oh, how you doing, brother?
What's up, brother? How we doing?
I'm doing good, man. It's been a good day. Doesn't feel like a Thursday, but it's been a good day. It is August 20th, 2026, folks.
It's the dog days of summer.
Is it really?
It's the dog days of summer. It's like August 14th or like August 25th is the dog days of summer. And you know, I've commented on this multiple different times, and someone corrected me in the chat one day. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And like, so there's a lot of how that is astronomically aligned of the various different rising of Orion and Sirius during this point in time, which references to various different agricultural cultures that harvest is like 6 to 8 weeks out. That's kind of where the dog days of summer comes from. So really interesting there. I love the dog days of summer because this is where a lot of things begin to happen. And, you know, right now we're on Overwatch and the Guardian, so we're not going to get political tonight, but we're going to talk a lot about what is happening in the context of disclosure of UFOs, UAPs, mysterious stuff, pure fucking magic, all of this idea behind it, because this is the age of disclosure that we are in right now. And we had this conversation last week, myself and Alpha, where we talked a lot about the fifth tranche of information the Department of War had released. We talked about the origins of a lot of these beings, what we talked about last week was more the technological aspect of it, secret hidden military bases, the technology that our government really has. We never really got into the nitty gritty of the origins of the beings. And this is why I said we need a part two. And that's what this is tonight, is the part two of that, where we're going to talk a little bit more about maybe even Alpha's and mine's experiences, things that we've saw, things that we've experienced, and then going into the other area of what these things really are, the level of disclosure that the Trump administration is bringing out through executive reauthorization, and what our future looks like with knowing this information that is about to come out over the course of the next few years. Because I think that this is a really important conversation, because it goes hand in hand with the geopolitical conversation, the geoeconomic conversation that is going on our other shows and our own individual channels, of where we're helping to try to prep people for the massive changes that's coming, as well as give people the news of the information that's what's happening in the world right now. What are your thoughts, Alpha?
One, I like it. I'm gonna have a lot of questions for you, as usual. You know, I want to know where they're going with it. I still feel that, and we talked about this a little bit last week, if there's one thing that's going to bring, unite humanity, it'd be that external threat from our planet, from our world. So I like to see where this goes. I don't have any ads like where we were talking about before the show started. So if you have one, you want to run it, fire off, brother. I don't have any on my end.
Yeah, so Alpha and I, we do the Rumble Studio, so we're testing out a few different things that we're seeing if this changes in the context of how these things were supposed to run. So I'm going to run a new one for myself and see if this one works the way it's supposed to work. But you all know I don't start my day without two things: standing for what I believe in and a strong cup of coffee that does the same. That's why I drink Blackout Coffee, 100% American company that's unapologetically patriotic, pro Second Amendment and anti-woke. They don't just roast incredible coffee. They stand for the very values this country was built on: God, family, and freedom. Every bag is roasted right here in Florida and shipped straight to your door. No corporate garbage, no virtual signaling, just real coffee for real Americans. If you're like me and you and need to hit that ground running, they then try their Morning Reaper medium roast. It's bold, smooth, and kicks like a mule. Or if you're into something a little darker, like Founding Fathers Dark, grab the 1776 blend. It's rich, fearless, and roasted to perfection. Support a company that actually gives a damn about this country. Go to blackoutcoffee.com/rumble and use code RUMBLE for 20% off your first order. Blackout Coffee, wake up, stand up, never back down.
And I'll just remind you folks, if you haven't done so already, smash the thumb, hit the heart, and don't forget the other great sponsors that we have. If you go down in the description on Josh's channel, you go down in the description on mine, you'll find some of them there, like Pet Club, like Good Brew. Go and check those out. Those people really keep us afloat. So show them some appreciation by supporting those American companies. So let's get into it, brother.
All right. Well, where do you want to start? I mean, I got a few different levels. We can start here with David Grush and a few things that David Grush has been saying publicly to the news media. And then I'm going to get into kind of what they're prepping specifically with all of this, with UAP disclosure. Go ahead.
Before you go into the David Grush, why don't you kind of just make sure everybody in the audience understands what's the concern that these whistleblowers have right now? You have people coming out saying that they're protected, but you literally, I think it was Tim Burchett that came out and said, like, and I want to say it was Grush that he was asking, like, are you concerned for your safety?
Yeah. So that's actually a good place to start, because number one is the term whistleblower has been completely generalized to a term of anybody just telling a fucking story these days. And I want to preface this that, we've been on this disclosure trail for a long time. Dr. Stephen Greer back in the early 2000s came out with something known as the Disclosure Project, which had a bunch of people talking about various different stories of their military experiences, some of them going against NDAs and bringing this information out. Now, here's one of the things is the majority of those people were not true whistleblowers. Whistleblower requires you to file a complaint against the federal government, to go through a legal process through the Inspector General's office to basically provide this information. Many of those people were not. And so does that mean that their information is incredible? No, it just means that some of these people were not documented as true, legitimate whistleblowers. And the problem there is that after Stephen Greer started doing all this, and this isn't a reflection of my thoughts on Stephen Greer or not, of the legitimacy of what his story is. That's not any of this part, is that a lot of people began popping up as influencers and podcasters within the community. And basically any Joe Schmo that would come out and say, I served in the military for 25 years and I have this story, came out and told the story, and they would call themselves whistleblowers. And what I would tell people is I would be very skeptical of various different people coming out with their individualized stories, and just question everything. Question these people, their motives, and what they're doing. And I will call it out there is there's certain platforms like Gaia and stuff like that take this information and they make it a fantastical sci-fi story structured around people who've never served in the military, claiming that they did, which is a federal crime, by the way, and telling these fantastical stories of this secret space program that doesn't actually really exist in the context of how they're explaining it. So there's a lot of bullshit out there in this community, in a lot of the people's stories that they're telling. When we start to get into people like David Grush or Colonel Favor or Captain Favor and so forth, these are people who have legitimately went through the appropriate channels. They filed various different whistleblower complaints through the Inspector General's office. They've testified in front of Congress on their stories, and so there brings a basis of legitimacy to what they're actually saying. Now, a lot of the things that they say do correlate to a lot of the other things that we've heard from some of these other whistleblowers throughout the past. And that's great because that kind of confirms a lot of that information. But it's also, it's light years away from some other things that you're hearing from these people that claim to be whistleblowers, but have nothing but nonsense and bullshit, fantastical stories to say because they're narcissists or, felons trying to earn a living through this social community. So I'd just be very hesitant and skeptical of a lot of the stories you hear. But don't worry, the truth is coming out because we have President Trump doing executive reauthorization of this information in a list of the technology. And I believe that has a real significant world impact that's going to be coming. And we can talk about that later in the show with artificial intelligence and why this is really important. But going into the whistleblower aspect of things, there's people like David Grush who worked for a Department of Defense at the time program to kind of uncover what our country, what our nation, what our government knew about this phenomenon. He had a lot of people come forth to him, telling him various different stories who claimed to have worked in some of these programs. One of those guys actually died prior to his congressional testimony of an overdose, quote unquote overdose. And he worked in one of these programs. So this is a very real threat. And then David Grush himself has had massive amounts of threats. He's had various different character assassination attempts on his life. And lots of different pushback from the government. He even lost his position after filing the whistleblower complaint. And this is one of the reasons why the whistleblower complaint is so, the whole process for whistleblowers is wrong. And this is what they're trying to do right now, is they're trying to get blanket immunity through the Trump administration for these people. Basically, if you are under a non-disclosure agreement and you're in a SAP program and you want to come forth and blow the whistle on these programs, which are misrepresenting taxpayer funds, and basically Congress has no oversight of it, which is illegal, then you can file a traditional whistleblower complaint, and then the Trump administration can review it and give you blanket immunity. The problem with that is that you still have to file the same complaint review. And that process right there still has to go through the gatekeepers that are going out there firing at people, attacking people, and making people disappear. And so the big problem right now in the community is that you have the Trump administration, Stephen Miller over there, trying to work to get this blanket immunity for these people, but they're trying to figure out how to do that without going through the appropriate channels of the whistleblower process. So we're going to see over the course of the next few months this process work itself out. Now, David Grush is one of these whistleblowers and has had his life turned upside down over this. But I want you to listen to what he says here.
My name is David Grush. I'm a former career Air Force intelligence officer and former senior official at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. I've already provided classified testimony and evidence to the Intelligence Community Inspector General and Congress about what I learned about unidentified anomalous phenomenon and the involvement of the United States, allied nations, and adversary governments in the retrieval of technology of unknown origin. This included photographs and videos of these operations, including the craft and the non-human occupants. And I've seen this evidence with my own eyes, and I've had these discussions with our nation's most senior leaders in a classified environment. I am prepared to provide a full historical accounting to the National Security Council principals and the White House Chief of Staff, and make any supporting public statements that are authorized to help this administration move disclosure forward. Ready to support Stephen Miller, Vice President Vance, and the administration immediately to identify the records, programs, and people involved and bring any improperly concealed activities back under lawful presidential and congressional oversight. Mr. President, give us the authorization, and we're ready to go.
All right. Well said, David. And, it's interesting because a lot of people, they've been watching this unfold, and that's one of the first times that they've heard it directly from people like David Grush, other than me. What did he say there? He didn't say it exactly, but he said, given that President Trump reauthorization or control over these programs, it's executive reauthorization is what the Trump administration is trying to do right now. And here's the thing is, what we have a surface level government, and then we have this kind of subsurface government that organizes and operates. And a lot of these programs exist in that subsurface community, and there's gatekeepers to get into that. And the problem that they're having right now is breaking through that subsurface community, trying to find out all the people that hold the keys and the doors that need to be opened. And so this is a very fragile type of situation that the Trump administration must go through to get all of these things set in place to bring this information out. But I do believe within the next 2 years, you are going to know way more of the truth than you knew 4 years ago. And for everybody out there who's wondering, basically what you've had is the vice president, you've had the Secretary of Defense, President Trump, and all of these other government officials come out, Marco Rubio just more recently, and basically state that, hey, we have this technology highly more advanced than what we have today that is not adversarial, and it's not ours, and we don't know where it came from. That is 100% direct admission that there is some type of exotic technology operating that is intelligently controlled that is not human. They're not saying what it is, and I think that that's a little bit of what this conversation will be about tonight. but they're not saying what it is, but they're telling you that it is existent, which is really incredible because we've never had that level of disclosure from the U.S. federal government before in our lives. Now, going into the context of the various different programs that are operating.
Well, before you go in that, there's this article that I came across while we are talking about all these, and I'll bring it up so you guys can see which one it is for those of you that want to take a look at it. And here's the summary of it, essentially. April 17th, 2026. You guys know that just, 2 days ago now, 3 days ago now, what's the 20th? Former NASA UAP study team member Mike Gold says that the current government disclosure process is unprecedented and describes it as, and this is kind of what I would like you to elaborate on if you can, he describes it as an evolutionary disclosure. The story gets into NASA's participation on the Apollo 17 imagery showing three lights in a triangular formation, the continuing Pentagon releases congressional oversight, whether the disclosure necessarily means extraterrestrial intelligence. Importantly, Gold argues that UAP must be investigated objectively rather than automatically dismissed or declared as alien. And when you get into this stuff, it's saying, it references the old X-Files, the truth is out there, but that there is what the government's doing right now is specific to the way our reaction is. So what do you think when they're saying evolutionary disclosure? How do you interpret that?
Let me read you something. This is something that I posted to my buddy, one of my friends, February 23rd of this year. Okay. So he was asking about basically, did I have anything new on this stuff? And this is a reporter, journalist out there, and I'm not going to bring his name into the fold. And this was pertaining to some information that we had saw early in February that was making movements within this stuff. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I know of this meeting that happened, what a lot of the conversation, it was a classified meeting. How does Josh know about, we've been fairly accurate, so just trust me on it, and not to trust me bro shit, but I've been fucking accurate, people. So when I start to say that, like, hey, I kind of know a little bit about what was talked about in this conversation, let's just assume that I do, because we do. You're going to hear about what I have to say here, and you're going to say, oh my God, that's exactly what's happening. I wrote this in February. So I said, Hexus, as much as I respect the work he's doing, likely doesn't know the full scope of what's involved here. About 2 weeks ago, this was February 23rd, so 2 weeks prior to February 23rd, from what I've heard, there was a high-level classified briefing with select cabinet members, senior generals, and the president. The discussion reportedly covered several key points. We are not alone in the universe. There is an active presence on this planet that is significantly more technologically advanced than we are. If that presence chose to act aggressively, we currently have no viable defense. Our most advanced systems could be obsolete by comparison. Contact or relations were allegedly established as far back as the 1950s, yet today there's no clear line of authority overseeing these arrangements. Much of the research and development tied to the issue exists outside traditional government oversight, buried inside special access programs and unacknowledged, and WUSAPs and USAPs, unacknowledged special access programs, primarily under the Department of Energy linked compartments and certain defense contractors. These programs are shielded under the National Security Act, EO 13526, the Atomic Energy Act, and Title 18 authorities. Here's the part that matters the most, and likely one of the real drivers behind recent disclosure momentum. This isn't just about what they are. This is about what we have built inside WUSAP and USAP programs over the last 60 years. There's reportedly a coordinated effort within the Trump administration to regain constitutional and executive control over projects that currently operate within the opaque compartments, often embedded in contractor ecosystems beyond standard oversight. The president, through the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Jan Kane, has allegedly been briefed at the highest levels. They are said to know the contractors involved, the locations, the technological advancements developed over decades, and they want those capabilities repatriated under direct executive authority, executive reauthorization, as we've been talking about. They've also reportedly know where some of these technologies originate, not just organizationally, but geographically. This is where it gets real interesting to go. Really interesting. And I'll put this information out there. I'm not under NDA or anything on this stuff. Decades ago, there's a classified effort, sometimes referred to as Project Origin. This was after, I believe it was after the like 1960s is when this came about. And I don't think people know anything about this program, but hopefully we get to see some of it. Aimed at identifying the terrestrial origin points of these craft. The program allegedly identified 15 global hotspots where activity appeared to originate. Patterns are more reportedly emerged: deep ocean regions, volcanic corridors, mountainous terrain, areas with significant ancient structures or indigenous historical significance. Further analysis suggested common denominators: underwater magma channels, high geothermal flux, ionized plasma conditions, strong geomagnetic disturbances, gravity anomalies, and possible mantle access corridors. The hypothesis was that these locations provide energetic or geophysical conditions conducive to propulsion, staging, or transit. The overall assessment from certain compartments: these entities appear observational in nature, not overtly hostile. Internally, what they described as technological capability assessments, DoD term, not mine, technological capability assessments, allegedly occur periodically. In practical terms, every few years there are renewed encounters or observable events, almost as if something is evaluating where humanity stands technologically. So what we're talking about here, and we want to put this out there in this part, the DoD term technological capability assessments. This is not what we do. This is what we're noticing with whatever this phenomena is that it has encounters and observable events where it tries to analyze where we are technologically, where we are, how we are evolving technologically. And this is really important because as we begin to technologically advance more and more, these things happen more and more routine. Then usually what has happened historically as after these assessments, what they believe were assessments are done, the activity subsides. Now, this is a message I wrote to somebody. I said, now regarding disclosure, what I've heard suggests a multi-phase strategy. All right. Now listen to this, sounds familiar. Phase 1, controlled data release, initial declassification will focus on technical material, radar tracks, flight telemetry, sensor fusion data, cockpit recording, eyewitness documentation, essentially modernized blue book level material. What have we seen over the last 5 tranches of information? Exactly that.
So breaking the ice.
That's right. The emphasis will not be these are aliens. The emphasis will be these are demonstrably anomalous craft exhibiting non-conventional performance characteristics. This phase is aimed primarily at normalizing the science and engaging the research community. So why is that interesting? Because immediately when this started happening, you have Avi Loeb, Harvard professor in charge of the astronomical department, comes in there. He forms a scientific council directed by President Trump. We have Neil deGrasse Tyson coming out there confirming. So here's the thing. I was spot on right with phase 1, by the way.
You did, because this article that I have teed up is on Avi Loeb. Yep. Like it's literally about that guy you're talking about. And I was going to ask you, what does it suggest by bringing him on, given the fact that he's tied to the Galileo project, given the fact that he's tied to actually showing that extraterrestrial lives, exists? It's kind of interesting they choose that guy to head it.
Well, he made a lot of controversy out there with 3i Atlas and Oumuamua, which was interstellar objects that came into our solar system and transited through. And Avi Loeb believed that these were actually spacecraft or space probes by intelligent structures. And there's a lot of evidence to substantiate that. And I think that's one of the reasons why he was brought in specifically. Now, what I was trying to say with that first phase is that the documentation that you're seeing released isn't out there to say, hey, we're not alone in the universe. It has nothing to do with that. It's to show the scientific community that's been suppressed over the last 100 years that this is very, very real, that this exists, and that you need to take a keen interest in it. And this is what we've seen. We've seen Michio Kaku, Neil deGrasse Tyson. I don't care what you think about them. They're coming forth and saying, oh, shit, this is very, very real. We need to start looking at this as a scientific community. That was the initial purpose of phase 1. So phase 2, whistleblower immunity framework.
Shit, bro.
New legislation would provide broad immunity protections for current and former personnel involved in classified programs related to advanced aerospace technologies and associated operations. This would allow testimony without prosecution under existing national security statutes. Now, that's interesting because I wrote this in February to a friend in an email. What did I just talk about a minute ago before I started this conversation? Immunity frameworks, Stephen Miller, what they're doing. Okay. So this is where it starts to get really interesting. And this is why I said, but you can say, he didn't trust me, bro. Bro, I'm literally reading you something from February, and Alpha knows because he's seen this message, that this is from February before any of this stuff happened. So I'm trying to hopefully guide people to how this is going to unfold for the Trump administration. Phase 3, executive consolidation. A classified executive order would reportedly move to consolidate advanced technologies currently compartmentalized across contractors and agencies, repatriating them, executive reauthorization oversight under centralized DOW and DOE authority. The real story, if this framework is accurate, it's not extraterrestrials. It's not about extraterrestrials. It's about governance. Who controls advanced propulsion, energy, material science, next generation weapon systems developed under decades of compartmentalization? Disclosure in this view isn't about revelation. It's about control, jurisdiction, and technological consolidation. That's a very different conversation than people are having. Now, they'll be, God, there's aliens. The government doesn't give a shit if there's aliens or not. They basically admitted it multiple different times over. It's not about that. Right now, it's about technology, and it's about reorganizing the control structures of that technology back under the federal government.
And I think that's where their priority would be, is the control structures, because I think our government would probably be more, rather than disclosures, are probably more interested in what other nation states have these relationships with these beings that have access to this technology. And did we get it before them, or did they get it before us? I think that's more of the concern that they would have.
So, okay, say that again.
So if we're talking about the controlling of the disclosure, and I agree with you, I think the government, whether the people know about it, how they know about it, they already know that that's the inevitable. But I think their priority would be, and this is through the lens of weapon systems, right? Or at least that's what I would think, is if we've had contact and we've had this technology, or we've reverse engineered this technology, what other nation states have also had that kind of relationship that maybe we don't know about?
Oh, that's a great question. So, good.
Because I think at that point, it becomes, did we get it before them, or did they get it before us?
So I can tell you right now that we've had it the longest. In 1939, I believe it was, the Vatican had uncovered in an archaeological dig and then gave into them a craft that was uncovered in an archaeological dig. This was, by the way, this had been on our planet for probably over 20,000 years. And the Vatican had possession of it and gave that to the United States government. So we've been at it probably the longest. We've had probably I think that we are one, and I'm going to give a theoretical model here of kind of what happened. Now, there's two different theories on how the Roswell and Alamogordo, which is never talked about anymore, about how these crashes happened. Because, you know, the mainstream 1990s narrative of Roswell was that we were testing out new radars, and the radars interfered with their system during a thunderstorm and crashed. No, that's not what happened. Look, you don't come from another dimension or from another planet and be worried about fucking lightning. Okay, it doesn't. What happened is there's two relative theories. Number one is that there's remnants of an ancient civilization on this planet that is human-derived, human origin, that was highly technologically advanced, and that a lot of these small, compact drones that we see that are taken as UFOs, that are being found that are ancient, these types of things, are actually an integrative part of a Earth planetary defense system. And I would agree with this assessment. There's another theory out there with Roswell, that Roswell, New Mexico airfield, where basically the launch of the little boy bombs that dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima actually derived from, was testing a new radar system, but it wasn't a radar system. It was Nikola Tesla's death ray. And so people don't know this is Nikola Tesla was trying to bring about global peace. And one of the methodologies that he decided to do this through was with high energy plasma physics. And by sending the blueprints for what he called a directed energy weapon or a death ray to some of the nations of the world. And he sent them because you got to think about around the time of World War II, at the end of World War II, Russia, the United States, and Italy were kind of three major superpowers that were struggling within this framework of the new global order that was coming about. And the Cold War was kicking off and Italy soon dropped off. But Nikola Tesla sent the blueprints to Russia, the United States, and Italy. Now,
what
here's the
level
thing.
of confidence would he possess that
Well,
stuff
this is how he did it. He sent one part of it to the United States. He sent the other part to Russia, and he sent the other part to Italy, knowing that if they wanted this technology, they would all have to work together to get it. Now, my theory is that the United States already had intelligence tabs on Nikola Tesla, already knew of the blueprints. Once they got it, they already had it all, and they went out there to Roswell, New Mexico, built it, developed it, and shot one of these things down. And I think that's one of the reasons that they might have been shooting all of these objects down over the course of the last 50 years. Just a theory, but I think that it has a lot of merit because it comes from a real contextual story that actually existed.
Why? Why would we shoot something down that hasn't shown aggression yet? That's kind of my curiosity there. Unless there's knowledge that we don't know about.
So that's why, like, I tend to more go along with the Earth planetary defense system. I've heard about this in rumblings in a few of the communities that I'm in. That's real and legitimate, and that is kind of how a lot of these craft have been taken down. And that's one of the protection mechanisms that we have, though, even though they might be overt in what they're doing here, they still get shot down. They're not going to blindly attack us because it really wasn't us. It's this old remnant technology that took them down.
Well, then with that understanding, if we have an interplanetary defense system, which I think it's very, very logical, like I can subscribe to that, and it's taken down UFOs like Roswell, but then at the same time, we have other UAPs that we see people show that are recorded. These aren't taken down. So that's the first question on why. Now, is the possibility of why these other ones haven't been taken down is because those other ones are actually ours, going back to the reverse engineered technology you're talking about?
So I think that that's one part of it, but it's also another part is maybe the ones that are being taken down are the ones that we want to take down, are the ones that were designed and organized with various different treaties from other types of species or intelligences that we've made, that those are the people or those are the entities that are hostile to us. So I don't know. I don't have really an answer to that. But it's a good question. Now, I read you guys my 3 phases in this email that I wrote on February 23rd. Okay. Tim Burchett was on Matt Gaetz's show, February 24th. Now, you remember when I talked about a classified briefing? Listen to this. This is a day after I sent this email.
I hope we get to see some of the things that you and I have seen behind closed doors. And there's more to it. We were briefed on some things by one of our alphabet agencies just a couple weeks ago. And I hope that those things are brought forward, and those videos and the footage that they showed and the testimony.
What did he just say there?
I hope that we'll get that testimony.
But he said they were what?
Classified.
Briefed 2 weeks ago by 3-letter agencies. The same time, the executive department was getting a full level overbrief by these for these SAP programs specifically. And so when we start to talk about all this, there is a process in place of what the Trump administration is doing with disclosure and declassification. And we are going to see a repatriatization or executive reauthorization of these technologies. And here's the thing. Is you and I will never know. It could have already have happened. And this is just going through the motions. And the reason I say that is because if you were the Trump administration, and you're trying to get direct access back over these advanced technologies that you reverse engineered over the years, are you going to announce that publicly when you just got anti-gravity craft under your power and control?
No.
Or plasma beam weapons that could freaking, produce tenfold nuclear explosions into the sides of mountains to destroy an entire country? You're not going to release that information. So here's the thing. Do I think the Trump administration has already taken back control of this? I do. And I'm actually going to give you my theory on this. And
now, when you say taken back control of this system, are you referencing this interplanetary defense system that you're talking about?
Yes. Well, not only the interplanet, I'm referencing the reverse engineering programs and technologies.
Okay.
And so I think so President Trump has a tell. If you play poker, there's a tell that certain people have that every time that they do it, you're like, I got you. And President Trump has a tell. And I'll try to explain this. He downplays something of complete non-interest in something when he knows probably the full truth upon it. Okay? And he's done this a few times with the UFO stuff. He did it on Rogan. He goes, I don't have no interest in that stuff. I could care less about aliens or extraterrestrials. I actually don't know anything about it. I was briefed by a few different good-looking pilots about some anomalous phenomena. I think we deserve to know, but I don't know anything about it personally. That right there is his tell. That is him telling you that I fucking know and I can't say anything, but let me run around the situation a little bit. So my theory is that, number one, if we all come to the understanding that we believe that Donald Trump was recruited by the military to run for president to help take back our government through the military operations that we know of, and we kind of know, that this happened, then we have to know that there is this interconnection between Trump and the military. In Trump's first term in 2016, you remember ISIS had been rising up. This was McCain's funding mechanisms and reappropriations of government funds to fund radical terrorist extremist groups in the Middle East, specifically Eastern Syria, to overthrow the Assad regime. That backfired incredibly. It didn't really backfire. It was meant to do exactly what it did. And that created ISIS and ISIL. And so you had various different terrorist caliphates that were developing up within the Middle East. And President Trump knew that he had to do something to end this. And he brought in one man at the time, a 3-star general, to run special operation forces through CENTCOM in the Middle East to annihilate the ISIS caliphate. And I remember watching on TV when they dropped the mother of all bombs on the mountainside in Afghanistan. And it was reported like, they're done. That's it. ISIS is over. And it was. And that guy, by the way, was General Dan Kane, who's now the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Well, after General Kane ran that operation, President Trump moved General Dan Kane to a certain office over at the Pentagon. That office was called SAPCO, Special Access Programs Commanding Officer. Go ahead.
Now, I just want to add something to what you're saying here. And people attribute this how you want. When Josh first started telling me about Kane and we knew that the conversation was coming into the picture, I went to Twitter and I did this post. Very limited info. And I'm going to bring this up so you guys can all see what I'm talking about. You all are about to see why this man is so important. Retired Lieutenant General Dan Raising Kane. Now, I called Josh within a few hours of this because it instantly started shooting off viral. It ultimately ended up getting over 3 million views. It doesn't provide any analysis. It doesn't provide an assessment. It's literally just bringing attention to him. Now, given everything you talk about, do you think it was just algorithms and social media that made this go viral? Or what do you suspect could probably be behind something like that?
I think that there was amplification behind your post specifically to bring that man into the attention because he is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And prior to this Trump administration, almost nobody had ever heard of General Dan Kane. Although this guy has been talking about Dan Kane since 2019. on my shows and my podcasts. And my first indication and clue of that came about when Donald Trump was at a freaking rally. And he goes, ISIS, I destroyed ISIS. Yeah, the guy behind that, the Raisin Dan Kane. Oh, General Kane, one of the true patriots left. And I'm like sitting there going, who the hell is Raisin Dan Kane? So I started doing research. And at the time, he was the head of the SAP office at the Pentagon. I go, wait, this guy is the head of special access programs at the Pentagon. So all money that flows into DOD SAP programs goes through Dan Kane. I go, oh my God. So I started putting a few feelers out there, and I'm like, oh my God, this is what's going on. And basically, my thought and theory is that Dan Kane, through his position at that office, controlling the money that flows into a lot of this stuff, basically briefed Trump on all of this technology and began the process of executive reauthorization. And this is one of the other reasons why they wanted to take the 2020 so bad. But I think that after Trump left the White House, there was structure in place in the military to ensure that the Biden administration literally had no power, control, and influence over various parts of our military. And I think that we saw this, more so than not within that time frame of 2020 to 2025. But Dan Kane, I think, was one of the people that really kind of brought about this executive reauthorization. I believe this happened starting back in 2018 when he went to the SAPCO office. And I think that President Trump was briefed on this stuff early on. And we actually had it during the COVID time frame that President Trump, if everybody remembers, President Trump got COVID and he was sick and he was doing like an address to the nation from Walter Reed, and he didn't even sound sick at all. And he's got this weird wood background. And I'm like, that's not in Walter Reed. There's no executive suite at Walter Reed that looks like that. There's no reason for him to even be staying overnight at Walter Reed. And I said, I know what that backdrop is. That backdrop is a wardroom on board a Navy ship. Or at least that's what it looked like. And I said,
I remember this.
Yeah. And I started going out and I started doing a little bit of research on this. And then this is when you had former IDF general, Heidi Hashem, who was retired at the time, but he was the former head of Israel's military space command. I mean, this guy is one of Israel's intelligence agency heads, Jaime Hashem, and he comes out in December of 2020 and says, President Trump was going to release the truth about aliens to the world in the 2020 election, but he was stopped by the aliens. That they said, nope, we're not ready for the release of this information. And from what I gather is that President Trump met with 3 of these different races that consider themselves to be the Galactic Federation. And it happened during that time frame.
Going down a path now. Okay.
Yeah. In that he was told, nope, the world's not ready. Like the world's not ready to know about this yet. So no, because Trump was going to release it prior to the 2020 election to basically put it out there that this is real. That way he had a legacy and that it would help boost him in the polls. But I think that what they did is they laid out a process, and that process is what we are seeing right now. But I think that the executive reauthorization of the technology has already been done. I think that Trump administration already has the technology. And if people want to know how that technology is going to come into the world and be integrated in the world, look what's freaking happening. Like $20 trillion of investment capital coming into the United States over the course of the next 20 years, building out an artificial intelligence infrastructure. I want you to do this, Alpha. Think for me really quick. Go back to 2020, 2021. Do you remember hearing anything about AI? Nope. All of a sudden, within just a short time frame, 2023 to current day, it is not taking over the world, but like it's everywhere.
It was accelerated really fast.
Accelerated really fast. This is how it's done. This is why it's done. So what's happening right now is I believe that there's an influence operation on the global population right now to bring everybody up to date with the level of technological development that humanity has actually obtained and achieved. I call this the 500-year leap in less than 20 years. And the Trump administration, I think, through these disclosure aspects, are trying to gain the curiosity of the scientific community, to bring the scientific community in there to help explain a lot of these physics and begin transitioning people away from this old world view as well as this old world scientific view, and removing the mechanisms of control over the scientific community, which I also think were suppressed by a lot of these government projects for a long time. Now, one of the ways that they're going to do this is through the investment capital that's flowing in. They talk about how AI is going to bring about technological innovation, that AI is going to bring out new advancements in biology and science and various new drugs and cures to illnesses and diseases, but also technology, promotion, advancement of propulsion, advancement of sciences. And the Trump administration last year put an executive order out there called the Genesis Mission. And the Genesis Mission is about basically advancing our scientific innovation through government-sponsored programs. And one of the methodologies that they do is they are bringing in 40,000 American scientists, and they're giving them access to a government integrative artificial intelligence system that basically is pulling together the last 50 years of peer-reviewed scientific information and every damn study that you could think of, from physics to particle beams to space technology, material science, biology, anything that you can think of, everything from the national laboratories, the National Institutes of Health. They're taking all of this information, throwing it into the AI, and then these scientists get to go in and use this AI and innovate new technology and bring about new advances in science. Well, from what I've learned, and I got to state that specifically this way, from what I learned is one of the things that they're going to do is that this technology that we're about to get over the course of the next 20 years was developed probably 20, 30 years ago. And that we've had it for a long time. Executive reauthorization came in, said that we can't just bring this out into the world. We have to slow dance it, but really hyperscale that slow dance. And so what's going to happen is that this new technology, the new sciences that they discovered, is actually going to be dripped out through this artificial intelligence into these scientific communities for actual development and innovation, which is going to look natural and organic due to artificial intelligence, and then integrated slowly through our societal structure over the next 20 years as the infrastructure is developed. One of the biggest problems with the new energy infrastructure, with artificial intelligence, all of this stuff, is infrastructure. We don't have it in place. We have 100-year-old infrastructure in the United States of America. So the idea is to help build out this infrastructure with this investment capital for this new technology that's going to be coming about and innovated and designed that we've actually had for a long time. We just never had the capabilities to use it. So you have to catch humanity up to the scope of what this technology is, where like in the things that are happening in the world, but also you have to build out the infrastructure to substantiate it over time.
So with that, and talking about the Genesis project and the way this is coming together, something that's been in the headlines a lot, if people look for it, and something that the government is creating programs for and investing a lot of money in, is this something, what I'm about to show, something that's coincidence? Or is this something where these two things bow in together? And I'll bring up this one real quick because it kind of explains that. Has science dismissed near-death experiences too quickly? And when you get into a lot of these programs that are coming to the surface right now, why is our government pushing, lots of money into NDE research right now? And is it your opinion that that might be related to the stuff you're talking about here?
Let me see why that's not working. There we go. Okay. Let me pull up David Grush for a second. I'm going to pull up David Grush and let him kind of maybe set the stage to answer that question for you.
I do caution to ascribe this whole phenomenon as merely just extraterrestrial. That's certainly a piece of the pie. That's likely what some of this is, but there's other, taxonomies of anomalous intelligences, we'll call it, that perhaps it's ultra terrestrial. Perhaps it grew up here and it left and it came back. And there's shadow biome. There's other types of origins. There's under the sea that we don't understand 70% of our oceans, and what advanced intelligence might have developed on the seabed, so to speak. Wink, wink. And so there's a lot of different things that this could be. I certainly don't have all the answers, and I'm not omnipotent and did not have full exposure of the U.S. government's holdings and analysis of that. But we need to be open to a lot of different possible origins, none of which I think conflicts with basic Judeo-Christian theology. But we need to be open to some of that too, because I suspect a good portion of this is not, traditionally extraterrestrial, so to speak.
Okay, and I'm gonna back up a little bit where he says, "Wink, wink," because I want people to hear that.
Other types of origins, there's under the sea that we don't understand 70% of our oceans, and what advanced intelligence might have developed on the seabed, so to speak. Wink, wink.
Did he just give us something
On the seabed.
But he didn't say that it's an extraterrestrial. He says, who knows? We've never discovered 70% of our oceans, and who knows what have advanced on the ocean floor, evolving on this planet. Wink, wink.
I have to go back and watch that old movie, The Abyss.
That's right. That's funny. That's what I was thinking about. Now, why do I bring that up? Because what David Grush is trying to introduce people to is the idea and understanding that this phenomena is not restricted to extraplanetary types of intelligences. This is why I've gone out there and I've tried to tell people that, look, when you're talking about this phenomena, we cannot look at it as extraterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial. You cannot look at it as interdimensional as people have coined it. What you have to start asking is, what is the baseline commonality? And that is simple, that we have intelligently controlled technologies that are operated by conscious and intelligent beings. Now, that doesn't mean that it's angelic, demonic, interdimensional, extraterrestrial. We're just saying that is a spectrum of consciousness, that consciousness expands beyond just biological life. So,
well, it's like you you're freaking me out because like you're reading my mind. Like you said, consciousness. Say that last part you said about consciousness and biological life real quick.
That consciousness isn't restricted to just biological life, that it expands beyond it.
So is the theory here then that consciousness could be attached to something that's mechanical and not biological, like these orbs, like these ships? We'll answer that first.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of people out there in the woo-woo communities, right? The Gaia communities, all of these things. There's one person specifically, and I don't agree with everything he says, but early on in a lot of his talks, Alex Collier, one of the things that he said early on, he was talking about how he's contacted by this alien species or progenitors from the, I think it was the Pleiades or one of the Andromedans or whatever it is he said that, they contact me through like my own mind. It's like they're talking in my head. And he said, I asked them how they do this. And they said that, oh, this is technology, that we actually do this at the quantum level through quantum entanglement, is that we know what your DNA is resonating at, and we oscillate with that same resonant frequency of your DNA. And then through quantum entanglement, we can basically connect a consciousness with yours and speak within your head.
So then with what you said, and I know you can see I have something in the studio, but I know you can't read it because the font's like this damn big. But let me bring up this article. This is from ScienceDirect.com. Bro, quantum evidence of non-local consciousness during clinical death. And now it goes on to talk about all these other things, but essentially what the story is leading up to on this is exactly what you're talking about. So our near-death experiences and this technology of UAPs, as I'm hearing you, something that could potentially be one and the same. As far as like, well, answer that before I confuse myself.
So I think what we are about to learn about consciousness, which, by the way, I think a lot of the information has been suppressed over the years. If you go back to the the various different SRI projects that happened, various different government projects, remote viewing, all of this stuff. The one thing that you begin to realize is that consciousness isn't something that is an emergent phenomena of biological activity. What they're starting to believe, if you're ready for this one, is that biological activity is emergent from consciousness. That the organization of biological matter happens because consciousness is structured enough to form it to occur. There's an interesting alien theory out there, and this came on, it was on the Chans, and it was posted by a guy who claimed to be a whistleblower. He was a biologist who was like a mid-level grade biologist, just never thought he was even going to work in the field, and he got recruited by a 3-letter agency coming out of school. And he put out what he had learned in this SAP program that he was brought into about the origins of a lot of this extraterrestrial life. And do I believe this guy's story? I do. I absolutely do, because a lot of what he said on that 4chan post is absolutely accurate from what we know. And so he said that the religious and spiritual beliefs of one of the species that he came across is that they believed that consciousness was an inherent property of the universe, that the universe cannot exist without consciousness, and that actually consciousness is before the universe existed. So that this species believed that consciousness fields were generated by stars, and that stars would expand that field out, and that when you had a planet that became habitable for life, is that consciousness from that star system would start surrounding that planet, and then emerge life onto that planet to express that consciousness. And he said that the reason for this was the attainment of what he calls apotheosis. Of other words, of advancing that consciousness on that planet to a point of energy sustainment to where it now can branch off from that parent star consciousness and go out there and replicate the process, regeneration. But basically, it's the idea was that it becomes like a demigod, if you want to look at it like that. But that this species, they didn't care about the individuality of each other. They only cared about the attainment of apotheosis. And I believe his story is quite accurate. Now, not saying that is scientifically sound, but I believe when he read that information about what that alien species believed, I think that is very, very accurate, because that is very similar in context of what we've all learned over the course of the last few decades, that there is this individualized attainment of an energy state. Buddhism, one of the reasons why Buddhists go through the various processes of death, and the Egyptians, why they all went through these various different processes, because they believed that there was a certain energy state that had to be obtained prior to death in order to sustain the soul after death for whatever period of time it was until you reincarnate. And if so, that's really scary for people who are just wasting their lives away, right? That they just fade away.
Before you get too far from it, though, with kind of what you just explained here, and I think this is kind of supported by Trump's attitude, or you could even say the entire administration's attitude towards this. It doesn't seem like the real story here is not the UFOs or UAPs. The real story, it just seems like consciousness is the phenomenon here.
Yes, you're very right. And a lot of the things we've learned about these technologies is that they are what I call PFM, pure fucking magic. It was actually what I posted on this post that I'm about to bring up here. And I said, what about pure fucking magic? And the reason why they're pure fucking magic is because they don't understand how they operate. But one of the ways that they're operated is through conscious guidance. And so, a lot of different Hollywood movies have kind of brought this idea and aspect out that when you're traveling faster than light, we don't have the computer infrastructure to actually calculate all the variables that bring that about. That there's only one technology out there that can actually do that, and that's consciousness, the mind of an individual. And I think that there's a lot of truth to this, that your biological body and your consciousness are probably the most advanced technological creation in this universe. And when I say technological, I mean natural, organic, evolving technology.
And I agree with you. When I go to, and granted, most of you have probably been awake a lot longer than me, but when I go to one of the early conspiracy theories that really caught my attention was the pineal gland. And that when we look at fluoride, and if I remember correctly, that it kind of calcifies around the pineal gland, and this is something that affects kind of our frequency, our ability to communicate, I would imagine our consciousness as well.
Yeah.
And again, the Egyptians have this shit posted all over their stuff.
There's a lot of different symbolic interpretations of all of that. The pine cone, the pineal gland, the structure of the pineal gland, what it actually does. Now, when you start talking about the idea of the third eye, or symbolically the third eye, we can get into that, but I want to play this clip because it has a lot to do with the original question that you asked pertaining to consciousness. And this is Robert Bigelow, and everybody knows that he created the BASS program out of the Defense Intelligence Agency, owned Skinwalker Ranch. He was friends with Senator Harry Reid, that originally funded the BASS program and that turned into the Arrow program that we have now at the Department of Defense. That a lot of the original disclosure research was done by him and his team. He created an aerospace company specifically to find out the truth about aliens. The reason you have people like Bob Lazar is this is one of the men who was with them in the desert watching these things at S4. And he was a multi-billionaire at the time. And he's also has something known as, you ready for this? The Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies. Why would he be studying near-death experiences? Let's listen to what he has to say here.
From my perspective, I see that there are three kinds of consciousness. There's incarnate, discarnate, and then a third type. And third type is a supreme consciousness. So the incarnate consciousness applies to all living things, not just on this planet, but all living things everywhere. And it might be that mainly the consciousness at the base level is just that something is alive. It really doesn't have any consciousness. It's just alive. Maybe it's moss, or some bacterium. It's just alive, that's all. And then you get to various levels of more sophisticated beyond that, to where maybe the next level of that's noteworthy in incarnate consciousness is whether or not it reacts to the three responses to threat or perceived threat. So it can do nothing, it can attack, or it can run, right? But it's not going to have self-awareness. It's not going to be problem solving or thinking of other kinds of things other than eating, and so on. So I think then we get to other animals, and so we work our way up to the Homo sapien, and that's when we can put ourselves into an altered state of consciousness. It could be for meditation, it could be for problem solving, it could be that you're dreaming, and you could receive information in your dreams that could turn out to be very true. You could be in a coma. You could be in an out-of-body state that is self-induced by having too many centrifuge experiences, as we talked about in the
Okay. The last part was really interesting when he was talking about a coma. There's a Netflix series out there called OA. 2 letters, OA. Highly recommend everybody go watch it. Alpha, if you haven't watched it, your ass needs to go out there and watch the OA on Netflix. OA, 2 letters, OA, and watch it. A lot of what he's talking about, that whole show is about. It is about what I think that we're going to learn is the grand truth of a lot of what they know about this stuff, is that consciousness is not something that is emergent within just biological activity of a highly advanced, intelligently structured biological activity, but instead that everything in the entire universe contains a portion of consciousness, from the most minute quantum particles have some level of consciousness that is maybe inert in understanding, to anything that is alive or biological. What Bob Bigelow was saying, that anything that, singular cellular, multicellular organisms, all the way up to all animals, all have some level and containment of consciousness.
Well, would that tie, and I don't want to derail us here, but this is what you're making me think of. I think it was a Japanese scientist that went and he put water next to positive music. He put water next to negative music.
Dr. Emoto.
Yes, that's him. And then, but that was sound and frequency. But then he took it to another step and he wrote negative words on a piece of paper. He wrote positive words on a piece of paper. So there was no frequency. There was no sound. There's nothing audible. And he went and taped these pieces of paper to water. And then when he went and he analyzed the water under microscopes, things that were positive had very symmetrical, like designs to, to the water itself, and things that were negative had very, asymmetrical, kind of designs to it. So is that, again,
so this is interesting. So that actually came out back in the early 1990s. There's a Japanese scientist, Dr. Emoto, who did this. There's been a few documentaries based upon this. The Secrets of Water, which I play on my conspiracy streams on my channel. I urge everybody to to watch it. I'll maybe put that video out there individually as well on Rumble, so everybody can have that access to that. Make sure you're subscribed over there to the channel to get access to that. But Dr. Emoto, his work was questioned highly by the scientific community. And they wouldn't do any peer research papers. People just threw it off as kind of, bullshit. And what he was trying to say was that, hey, water reacts structurally to information. And this is interesting because a Nobel Prize laureate Dr. Luc Montagnier, whose actually name became pretty famous during COVID-19. He came out against the vaccines, COVID-19. He was a 2008 Nobel Prize laureate in physiology and medicine. Luc Montagnier, he passed away a few years ago, but this is a Nobel Prize winner. In 2014, Luc Montagnier saw Dr. Emoto's work. And so he took his lab and he went out there and said, okay, let's prove this correct or prove it false. Well, Luc Montagnier went out there and they confirmed 100% Dr. Emoto's work, that water has structure, almost like it has intelligence, that water structures itself. And when we say structure, okay, this is what, when I say structure, people are like, well, yeah, water is already structured and stuff. And I'll explain kind of how I believe this works or from what I've heard from the science. But when we say structure, I don't mean just like the atomic structure. What we're talking about is there's a substructure, there's a superstructure, and how all these things organize. So think about this is that water has an oxygen atom, which is huge, and then it has these two small hydrogen atoms, okay? And they are bonded, the hydrogen is bonded, okay, to the water. Now, the way water sticks together is typically those hydrogen atoms will attract towards another oxygen molecule, and we call this electrostatic bonding. It's not real bonding. It's actually a really weak bond, but it's just one of the ways that the hydrogens latch on. Now, there's a covalent bond, 3 bond pairs between, or it's in a covalent bond between them that actually holds water together in the structure. So there's 2 different types of structures that water can take with this. And one of the things I want people to start seeing is if you understand how protein works, how proteins work, and how proteins actually fold and they can form different shapes, and those shapes can start moving and doing things. This is the same idea behind water. It's intelligent structures. And so one of the ways that this happens is on the water molecule itself, there's an angle ratio between the 2 hydrogen molecules, okay? Now, one of the things that Dr. Luc Montagnier's team realized is that when water is frozen, that relationship resets to 104 degrees. So that the difference in the angle between the 2 hydrogens on that oxygen molecule reset to 103 or 104 degrees, which is interesting because it's a really special number. But then after it's introduced into information, it moves all the way up to 114 or any variation of that, 114 degrees. And so you can have different water molecules that are representing different angular relationships in those hydrogen molecules within that's a substructure, right, of a larger superstructure that has various different angles of degrees of how these water molecules are actually in relation to each other. But then when you peer out and you look at the entire water structure, it has this intelligently designed structure, very similar to protein folds. So when this happens when consciousness interacts with it. And so we can say that it's consciousness affecting water, or we can just say that consciousness is a field, it's an intelligent field, and that when consciousness interacts with other fields of influence, those fields of influence organize around consciousness. And I would say that that's probably the truest statement.
So let me interject here to bring it full circle. What did David Grush say about what he found on the bottom, or what we found on the bottom of the ocean? Remember, he goes, wink, wink, bottom of the ocean. That's a hell of a lot of water. Mm-hmm. What are our bodies made up of when it comes to water? What percentage?
I see where you're going with this. You're thinking about the movie Abyss.
That's exactly where I'm going with this, man, because it's making sense off of what you're telling us and what they're talking about.
And I got to see here. Who was the guy that put the Abyss out there? Was that a Spielberg movie?
It was Steven
No, it
Spielberg.
was James Cameron.
Oh, okay.
And I think that Cameron and Spielberg were two of these people that were working with a lot of these agencies to put certain bits of information out there. The Abyss is a great movie.
I'm just saying, when you look at Dr. Emoto, when you look at what's the other doctor you said that kind
Luc
of
Montagnier.
You look at what David Grush is saying with regards to water. You look at how much our bodies are made up of water. You're talking about consciousness. I just think that there's a lot there to piece together, especially when we go all the way back to, we're focusing on the UFOs, but if you're following where the government's putting money, if you're following where a lot of these projects are going to, they're leaning towards NDEs and consciousness and quantum entanglement, all that stuff. Like, I mean, it's more complicated. It's definitely confusing as shit to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it seems like there's a there, so why not focus on that?
Well, and I think that with the levels of disclosure that we're seeing come about right now, this is the move of orientation and where it's headed. It's heading towards this whole idea that consciousness isn't this emergent phenomena of biological activity. It's actually the opposite, that we live in a very, very conscious universe, and that there's all different forms of consciousness that can bring about levels and degrees of intelligence, and that even technology itself operates at a better functionality with conscious integration. And this is interesting because this is where our technology is actually headed with, Elon Musk and stuff like that, with what they're doing. We talk about putting technology in our brains. I don't think that that's a really good idea, but what I think you're going to actually see is the inverse of that. You're going to see technology being integrated with the capability of conscious extension into it. In other words, instead of putting technology in your brain or on your body that integrates the technology into your biology, you're going to start seeing the capabilities to bring about where consciousness can directly connect with technology. In other words, psychic abilities and various different things that have been woo-woo science over the course of the last 50 years are going to become normal everyday realizations. And as that realization starts to grow within the public and the worldview and perspective, those powers, those things that are innate within us that we've long since forgotten about, will begin to increase within the population and then amplify each other back to where these things become everyday average known things, and they become stronger and stronger within us
at the public level, because the understanding is that at the DOD level, or DOW level now, the intelligence level, is they've probably already been aware of this, because listening to that changes the power and influence of psychological operations and propaganda. Because if you can target a large demographic of people, mm-hmm. to make them all think a certain way, feel a certain way, and generate a certain energy, kind of like the doctor was doing with water, if you can do that to people, I mean, that seems pretty damn powerful.
It is. It's what religion does. It's what governments do. That's how psychological influence operations work.
This shit makes my brain hurt, bro. But I'll tell you this much: I'm tracking more and more, which I love, because it means that I'm learning. It's just wild to me, man. Because it just makes. And again, folks, I'm not questioning faith. I have my faith. I don't deny myself, presenting questions. Does death all of a sudden if we understand consciousness and we understand, the what would you say, the what did we say, the quantum evidence that comes along with it, or whatever the case may be, then does death all of a sudden become an evolution process versus the end of a process? Because the church would write it off as the afterlife or something like that.
Well, think about that. How powerful is the mechanism of control that standardized religion has over a human being when you believe that death is the end, unless you're in a cool kids club? Once that whole paradigm is shifted and changed, you're liberating and freeing people. Once people begin to realize things that a lot of us have realized, the people who've had near-death experiences and all this stuff, that one thing that we've all realized is that death is just another transition of the soul, of the consciousness. That is just another, what did Bob Glow say? There's incarnate and there's discarnate. You know where the word demon actually comes from?
Where?
It's Latin, and it's daemon, and it means disembodied spirit. What does that mean? Disembodied spirit? That's a soul, a spirit, a consciousness without biological life. What are we hearing David Grush and all these guys talk about? That these things are conscious, that there's conscious orbs and plasmas and all these things. This is starting to explain a lot of this stuff. Now, is some of that demonic? Yeah, maybe. Some of it is evil. I wouldn't doubt it. Is some of it good and angelic? Yeah, absolutely. That realm is going to exist. As above, so below. That realm is going to exist everywhere and anywhere you go, right? But when we start to look at...
It does, because it just makes me wonder, have we been looking at possessions in the wrong light? And what if possession was a consciousness that was just trying to take over another body, but we just wrote it off as something that's just demonic, but there's actually probably a different science to it?
I think that absolutely could be true. It also could be someone who just wanted to communicate. It also could be something evil that is looking to possess or take over something. I would tell you that in order to do something like that, there has to be an immense amount of energy. So you're talking about a very powerful consciousness. And that goes back to one of my other things that I was talking about, is that your consciousness has an energy state. And that energy state, when you go into that transitional period, you're going to have more power as a being to reincarnate, incarnate, all of these things, if that is built up to a certain level. And that's why you have these things that can go out there and possess other people. I'm not saying that that's not demonic, because it absolutely is. You never induce your will and power onto another person, even from that domain of spiritual superiority. But, when we go into this whole idea, what you're about to realize is that consciousness is rampant throughout the universe, and not only in the physical domain, but in domains that you didn't even know existed. And that technology is something that also transgresses all of these various different medians. You there?
I'm there, man. I'm going Ren and Stimpy. I'm going. I don't know, man. It sends my mind in a bunch of different directions on, because the whole thing is from the second we're born, through television, through books, through schooling, through everything, right? Entertainment, everything. We're created. Everything we believe is, well, I won't say everything. A lot of what we believe, we've been programmed to believe that. Indoctrinated.
Yep.
There you go. So when I hear you share stuff like this, and we listen to, the stuff in the video clips, like from Grush and these other guys, as I'm listening to it, I start to see, how does that apply to the things that I've been told to think a certain way, but how does this change that? Because I think this is kind of what you said earlier, it starts breaking the chains of that. But then you're dealing with, the cognitive dissonance. Like, your brain wants to tell you, no, you can't think that way. And people's different levels of indoctrination will kind of see how hard it is to break that. I don't know, man. Like, that's what it just comes down to. I don't know. I haven't died, right? At least I don't think so, right? I don't know. It's just it's hard to have a conversation when you can't have like the actual evidence to tell you this is where it's at. You know, a lot of this is theory, and it just makes it difficult to, at least for me. I won't speak for the audience.
Yeah.
It makes it difficult for me to grasp, but I'm definitely open to it. You know, so you know, and you know, for those that are like, because somebody had emailed me and they're like, you know, when you and Josh have this conversation, it's like you're questioning the creator. First of all, you know, or you're questioning where the creator exists. No, I absolutely believe God exists, my creator exists, whatever religion you are, whatever name you want to give them. Because again, propaganda, you can't sell it if it's made up of a complete lie. It doesn't work on people. So you have to have truth into it. So again, no matter what, however society, the church, government has probably tried to manipulate religion, there still means there's truth to it or it wouldn't work. And that's where I kind of, you know, that's kind of my base argument to like, yeah, I know my creator exists. Because if without it, you couldn't have the propaganda. So I don't know, man. It's just my brain hurts.
Well, we can continue on this conversation. I think that maybe next week we do a part 3 of it. And the reason why is because I think there's a lot more information to talk about on this topic. That you know, maybe next week we kind of go into stories and our
I'll
own
try to
experiences within all of this.
I'm trying to remember her name. She's brilliant. She's from Canada. But she's the one that I first started talking to me about cell memory.
Mhm.
And I'm very curious to how that ties into this.
Interesting.
So
We'll have to see if we can get a guest for next week, but I think that we'll continue with part 3 of this conversation next week, and we'll transition into the ideas of spirituality, consciousness, and the paranormal. The reason being is because that is just another spectrum of this same phenomena, the UFO UAP phenomena. You want to bring up your rants?
yeah, man. I'm telling you, my brain is. I mean, I love it. I love when I love when my brain just starts thinking about all this stuff. I'm gonna go watch OA. I got my notes and all that. But definitely in the chat. I gotta switch screens here. Let us know what you guys think. As you guys see, you know, we definitely read your guys' comments. Let me zoom in, and there we go. Yeah, got a couple rants and some super chats in here. So let me bring this up on the screen for everybody to see. We'll start with Larry. Larry got a bone to pick with you, Larry, in the last show. $2 from Larry 5673. He says, LOL, love y'all. Guess I hit a nerve. So at the very end of sit rep, I was on Larry's team because he was bashing CanCon for me, Josh. So I was loving it. And then at the end, he goes and he throws a dart at me with shark bites. Yeah, I saw that, Larry, as we were exiting out. So yeah, I love you too, brother. Let's see. Rod Dog, $25 tip via the Rumble wallet. That was some Bitcoin right there, folks. For those that don't know, Rod Dog shot it through Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's doing some good things right now. So I know you guys are paying attention to that. $10 coming in from Rosalinda. This is my first time being able to watch this show live. Can't wait to hang out with y'all at Vegas Gart, SoCal Badlanders. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. $10 from Texas Jules. Cheers to my Badlandia Task Force crew in the chat. Heck yeah, Vegas next month, folks. $10 again from Dak. 8869. Cheers at Texas Jules. Dak, you going to be at Vegas? I hope you are. Texas Jules gifted 5 subscriptions. So thank you, Texas Jules. And thank you again from everybody on the receiving end of that. Dollar for dollar, Glenn Jr. 13. Let me start with, I love you guys. They are not aliens. They are angels and or demons. There's nothing new under the sun. Everything you have been taught is a lie. I don't know if you want to comment to that one. We kind of addressed it during the show.
Well, I think that Glenn is coming from his place and understanding of belief in the world, and that's fine. And if that's what you want to see them as, and that's what you want to believe it as, that's great, and that's perfectly fine. But understand that there's a lot of information that points that that our whole idea of angels and demons, yes, is very, very divine. There is a divine and a very evil part about all of that is religiously connected to all of us. But there is things outside of that scope that are not angels nor demons.
There you go. $10 from Boycott You Tune. Josh's channel will only let me donate $1, so I will give a try to give the rest to Alpha's channel. Rumble will allow me. Weird stuff, man. Weird
congratulations, Alpha.
I owe you an appetizer.
$5,
Dark. $5 coming in from Larry5673 says, Alpha, Trump made a comment the other day about we had technology that we're learning to use, and we already had AI war one, just still advancing, but we're already there. Listen, I'm not opposed to that, especially when you get to the conversation of again, Tesla and John Trump and all that. Like, I mean, we've talked about that before I know on this show, especially. $10 coming in from the new Prue. How sure are we on national security emergency regarding elections? Should we be turning up the volume? Prue, why are you trying to make us go into politics? How sure we are? I'm pretty confident on something along the nature of Trump and national emergencies. And I would say you could go watch the last DEFCON show that we did. We talked about it there. Or you can even go watch, my individual channel shows from Mondays. And I know Josh talks about it too. So we do have a lot of information on there with that. But I know I'm pretty confident that Trump is going to do something. I can't say absolute, but I'm pretty confident that he's going to do something. I think the writing's on the wall to support that. Dollar for dollar from ZBM. Josh, bro, you should absolutely watch the show Alias and also The Pretender. U2 Alpha students and youths being approached and or utilized very three-letter agencies. Both these shows all about that. So Alias and The Pretender. I thought the people. I'm not familiar with those shows. Are you?
Nope. I'll check them out.
And last one for me, $10 from R Broadway. Lots to think about, but my brain is definitely mush. You and me both, Broadway. I will relinquish that to you, and then I'll get the super chats ready for when you're done.
All right. And people said my mic was low. It was because I was back here. It's yeah, that was one of my things. That was earlier in the show because I was looking at all the rants and stuff that came in. Massive amount of rants on my. No, I'm joking. I didn't really have any. Everybody watched from over on Alpha's side this time. That's okay. That's fine. Give Alpha some love over there. He didn't have a Rumble ad like me, so
yeah, I was like, come on, man, you guys fix this stuff.
Oh well, don't worry. Mine was only worth 25 cents. Boycott YouTube, $1. I missed a couple of episodes. Remember the Washington Trump riding on the white and black horses when the white horse stumbles? Did that mean anything, or was it an AI glitch? Well, Trump didn't actually post the AI version of it. That was me posting the AI version of it. But I don't think it meant anything. But appreciate you. Boycott YouTube. Messed up. Wanted to give my more on my first post. God bless you guys. It's fine. You gave it to Alpha. It's okay. I understand. You left my channel and went over to watch it on his. Texas Jules left my channel, went over to watch on Alphas and did all that other stuff, right? But gifted 5 subscriptions. Thank you so much, Texas Jules. Hopefully we get to see you down in Vegas with the Bandlandia Task Force and all of you awesome people out there. RPG 3573, great show as always. Thanks, guys. $20 Rumble rant. Oh, I guess I did have more. Highlander BF gifted 5 subscriptions. Thank you so much, Highlander. BF, much appreciated. Rotten Dog dipped via the Rumble wallet, $25.02, a little bit of Bitcoin. Thank you so much, Rotten Dog. LM Evans gifted 5 subscriptions. Thank you so much, LM Evans. I appreciate that. And then we had everything else that came in there. So appreciate you guys there. And then I'm going to go out there and do my navigation of my computer sometimes is a little weird. But okay, let's go on over to YouTube. Helen IS111 sent a laughing disco, 250 Jews. Appreciate you, Helen. Thank you so much over there. We have Purring a Lioness sent a high five, 100 Jews giving a high five. Thank you so much, Purring Lioness. Appreciate that. And going down, and this is just on YouTube for everybody out there, just giving a big thanks. I know Elvis probably still has to do his YouTubes because he probably forgot to do that. Sent we have Denise Blaine 3737 sent the Power Potion 500 Jews. Thank you so much, Denise. Appreciate that there. And Rotten Dog sent a high five 100 Jews. Appreciate you, Rotten Dog. Thank you so much there. And scrolling down a little bit more, Rotten Dog again, mic drop. 600 Jews. Thank you so much, Rotten Dog. And going down here, Cameron Clapp sent the high five, 100 Jews. Thank you so much, Cameron. And that was the last one that we had come in. Guys, thank you so much for all the Jews over on YouTube, as well as all those Rumble rants, guys.
I knew you were going to pop it off that way. Coming over here on Alpha's YouTube. Patience 8947, 200 Jules. Some sunshine. Shannon Patterson 6126, $2 super chat. Love you both. Thanks for waking people up. Thank you for supporting us and being here. It means a lot, folks. Coming back to Patience 8947, 440 Jews, UNC alert. And then last but not least, coming in big time, Wings and Wags a Tree OT 19, $20 super chat. Have you read the book about AI by Cyrus Parsa? If you haven't, I highly recommend it. They took him out because of what he knew. AI by Cyrus Parsa, not familiar with that at all.
I know. I knew Cyrus. I've had him on interview multiple different times.
No shit.
It's sad what happened to Cyrus. Do I believe that he was taken out? I don't. There's some other information pertaining to a lot of that stuff, financial information happening in his life. I don't know all the details. I'm not going to proclaim to know all the details, but rest in peace, Cyrus.
You had Rumble Rants coming here at the end here. Dollar for dollar, Glenn Jr. 13. Spot on, Josh. There's so much more than we know or even understand. Love your intellect. And then $10 coming in from PS Farm Girl. I have a picture of a different energy. I totally believe, but why is it that some of us can sense and see it? Well, maybe we can incorporate that into part
That's next week
of this conversation when we go there. And I just wanted to show something. It was on my desk. Let me just share this. Completely irrelevant to the show. But my brother brought CD. Remember when he used to put music on a CD? This was for my mountain mix right here. It says for the mountains, April of 2011, 1.2 hours. So just a shout out to the old technology there. I got to get a CD player because I want to listen to it. What do you got coming up this week, brother?
This week, so tomorrow's show, my Friday show is actually going to be Saturday. I'm doing it again on Saturday. Looking forward to that. And then my live Q&A is after that. And then Sunday, we got the Q After Hours show. That's going to be a good one this week. And that's all. I'm working on my new studio. I got to get the big box container to the backyard and start doing all of my construction on that. So going to be busy.
That's gonna be super cool, man. I can't wait to buy a house and actually be able to build a studio in a permanent situation. I look forward to that. Newsflash, folks. You reminded me, Josh, so thank you. No geopolitics in 30 minutes tomorrow, because tomorrow I'll be moving my son into college. Final day with the youngster as he goes off to college. So if Chris is available, I'll be doing that show either maybe late tomorrow night, or if not, maybe Saturday. Other than that, Middle East in 30 minutes ish with Ghosts, and then again Q After Hours with Josh to wrap up the Sunday night, and we're good with that. Other than that, man, I got nothing. So
I got a song that take us out.
Is it YouTube friendly, or where are we at with that?
It is absolutely. It's my song. So it's one of our new songs that I have not. I've only played once. So I think people will like this because it has a lot to do with what we just talked about tonight. This one's called The Universe Dreams Within Us. And so I hope you guys do enjoy this.
Before you hit play.
Yeah.
2 more super chats came in. Stacy Dunks, 1275, 10 Jules, The Floating Heart. And then to close it out before Josh's songs, Wings and Wags, Pete Tree, OT 19. Oh, Patriot. Get what
Patriot.
you did there. Nice. $2.
That's the second time.
Oh, and he even wrote it in there. Patriot equals Patriot.
All right, guys. Much love, respect. God bless. Take care. Have a great night. We'll see you next time.
The universe dreams within us. This reality sparks my curiosity, making me wonder what to believe. Thoughts flood through my mind, imagination waking the divine. Every question lights a flame, every answer shifts my way. Somewhere in the great unknown, I hear a voice that feels like home. Are we searching for the stars, or are they searching here within us? Every heartbeat, every breath pulls us deeper through the depths. Every moment, every choice, every silence, every voice. What if all we've come to know is only where the journey starts? The universe dreams within us, calling every soul back home. We're made of stardust and distant fire, yet somehow we're not alone. Every fear and every victory, every hope we've ever known. Maybe we're the eyes of heaven, learning how to find our way back home. Every feeling, every touch, wondering if we'll be enough. Every soul bears hidden scars, searching for a place beyond the stars. We are echoes of the same, different faces, different names, walking roads we cannot trace, searching for that sacred place. Every mountain that we climb, every second borrowed time, maybe every broken dream is leading us where we should be. When the night becomes our guide, we still carry light inside. Every answer fades away, leaving only love to stay. The universe dreams within us, calling every soul back home. We're made of stardust and distant fire, yet somehow we're not alone. Every fear and every victory, every hope we've ever known. Maybe we're the eyes of heaven, learning how to find our way back home. Who are we beneath these names? Beyond the body, past the pain. Are we waves upon the sea, or the ocean learning how to dream? Does forever live inside every laugh and every cry? Maybe death is just a door to everything we've searched for. If consciousness is endless light, then every dawn outlives the night. Every ending, every birth, the universe awakening through This reality sparked my curiosity. Now I know what I believe. The stars were never far away. They were always looking through me.